Hello everyone and welcome back to Is That Brandon's TikTok account. So in today's video I'm going to be doing a review for I'm a Celebrity 2025 episode 17. So at the beginning of the episode, Vogue explained that she had a good sleep looking at the palm trees and it could be the day that she leaves. Ruby said that her butt is her masterpiece, and Ginger explained to people that they should be using their breakfast canisters, not the cups, with Lisa screaming, "I love my breakfast cup," and turning it into a little song. "I love my breakfast cup, I love my breakfast cup, I love my breakfast cup." H kind of brought it to the camp meeting that people should use their cups twice, and then they should use their plate for dinner before kind of putting it ready to get washed. And it was Vogue who got voted out. So I don't know whether it was, Team Vogue against Team Ginge and H, and people just thought, we need to get Vogue out. So I'm not sure what that was all about, but yeah, she was the third campmate to leave. Kelly said that Vogue had thrown herself into everything. Tom explained that there was a void to fill, and Ruby said that she was funny, she was useful, and also very surprised that she got voted out. The next trial was called Walk the Plank, with Kelly saying it probably involves having to climb something. Ruby started straight away saying, "Who's not scared of heights?" Jack jumped in and said, "I'd love to do it." Shona said that she would love to do it. And yeah, they basically in the end voted for Shona because I guess she probably hadn't done a challenge by herself before. So they decided that it was right for her to give it a go. Kelly also said that Shona has the eye of the tiger and that she's definitely going to get the 9 out of 9 stars. So when Shona went to the trial area, it was a bit of a unknown in terms of what she was doing for the trial, but Ant and Dec basically explained to her she needed to avoid certain obstacles and collect the stars before walking the plank. And they asked whether she wanted to see what the challenge actually was. So they looked up into the sky, and it was basically this pirate ship with really thin planks on both sides and little wobbly barrels in the middle. So even she noticed and said, "Look, the barrels look really wobbly." So basically what she did is she had to walk from one side. She was obviously like up in the air. She had all her like protective stuff on. She had to walk, kind of jump over different logs. And there was different stars hanging from some of the logs. So she had to kind of like bend down, grab them, obviously make sure she didn't fall. It didn't matter if she fell. It just obviously meant that the game would probably be over. She got through to the ship, had to put her hand in like weird guns and things like that. She got to the end and had to turn a wheel to get the 9th star, and it was one of the biggest stars that she had. And obviously as she's tried to grab it, she's dropped it, and then obviously the plank got removed and she ended up like sinking down. So she was on a harness, but I guess if you're scared of heights, you don't expect yourself to sink so quick. So she screamed a little bit. She was more worried that she lost the star, but she still got 8 out of 9, and she said 8's not bad. So even she was proud with herself. Kelly asked Ruby whether she's had any facial treatments, and she said that from 40 years old, she's had Botox and filler. Ruby explained that if you can feel, well, I think she was just a bit over dramatic here, but she said if you put a little bit of more of my face, eventually your lady parts will end up being in your head. So I think it's just the way she said it. I think in the moment she was like, what, if I get stretched anymore, all my body parts will be in the wrong place. Shona said that she felt like she channeled her inner Jack Sparrow for that challenge. Tom told Martin that Shona could yodel, and she explained that she was a bit of a fan of the whole concept. She's got a CD and a book about it as well. So not only did Shona prove that she's a singer in one of the previous episodes, she also proved that she's a yodeler as well. See, I can't really quite do it. Tom spoke to Martin and obviously said to him, back in those days, it was all about getting record deals. And then H discussed about music in terms of nowadays, saying that it kind of depends what position you're in. Obviously, the power of social media is absolutely amazing. He said his YouTube channel blew up kind of overnight. He was with his friends, and then, he kept getting messages, and he had to, I think that was the last evening he said he had his notifications turned on, and that random people started discovering him, like other rappers, people like Stormzy and things like that. And yeah, I think Tom was basically saying that, back in those days, the ultimate goal was being a number one, with H saying that, nowadays, known artists and being consistent, and having that consistency is more important than how many people know who you are. And Jack said, yeah, it's all about having that loyal fan base now, rather than, I need to get a #1 single. You could have loads of #2 singles, but be even more famous as someone that's got loads of #1 singles. It's more, are people invested in you as a person, or are they invested in someone just because they've got numbers and just because they've got revenue coming in? So that's kind of what that's all about. And then I think at this point, Ginge and Lisa were kind of taking the mick a little bit. They were sitting up in Ruby's little den thing, and they were basically just saying to her, oh, go on, just shout, ask if the beans are ready. She just got on the little tunnel and she was like, are the beans ready? And then I think Kelly was sleeping, and then Lisa was like, go on, tell Kelly to wake up. And she's like, Kelly, cook some beans. So she woke up and she was like, I can't believe she's given out her orders. And, I was literally, she said that she was relaxing or sleeping or whatever, and she didn't expect to wake up to, orders straight away. In the end, Tom said that obviously Shona was the cook and he could just be bossed around by her. And Ruby said hopefully dinner would be something without tentacles. For dinner, they had kangaroo rump. Everyone seemed to be happy with that. And Kelly suggested that they fried it instead of boiling it. Martin also said that everyone kind of needs to step back and just let the chefs cook. Lisa asked if there was anything Jack couldn't do, and Shona explained she could have poked Jack with a stick today, because I think she was probably trying to cook by herself, and he kept just jumping in, trying to, give his advice and feedback and things like that. We also found out that the final 9 were going to be going to the Jungle Arms, and it was a strict guest list. So they were all given a new persona. They were given a personality and questions with varying answers depending on their character types. And they had to get those questions right in order to get into the bar. Obviously, the more they got wrong, the more they went back to the queue, of the back of the queue. And obviously, if they got their questions correct, they were in. So, for example, Ginger's character was called Rick Wigglebottom. Kelly's name was Ross, and then she kind of forgot the rest of it. H said, Jungle Arms, here we go. And Kelly said that we all want a night out, so, we're going to obviously try our best to get in there. Martin said he was first in the Jungle Arms, and he was the first one to get to the bar. So I guess that just meant he answered his questions quickly, and also the first one to get them all right. Ginge said that he's never had a Twiglet before, and he was basically just having a casual chat, and then he ended up dropping his glass of drink. Tom did a cheers to Kev. H was impressed by the crisps and the pretzels, and then Lisa was announced to reveal that they had all won fish and chips as well. Ginge said that he brought in the butter to camp, and obviously Shona just did that taste test for everybody. Martin explained you couldn't get much better for an opening act of karaoke with Lisa Riley, so she sang I Will Survive, and he basically explained what a voice. H said that he thought he was to get all the ladies when he sings, and he's to arrange his playlist, because when Tom sang, he had 3 of them dancing around him. Ruby explained that her performance wasn't the best, but it was evocative and sensual, which is what she was going for, and she sang Big Spender. I think the next person was H, and he brought on Ed Sheeran, aka Ginge, because he said, I couldn't exactly bring Ed Sheeran into the jungle, so I've had to deal with my backup. And he sang a song called My G, which obviously was about his sister. Ruby thought, H was just all about shaking his hips, but he actually can get quite emotional too. And H said he had to settle for Fred Sheeran, but they still ended up doing a semi-decent duet together. Martin said that singing Gold was special. Shona sang I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. Martin explained it was the best night he'd had for years, and H said that there was tears and laughter, and that was obviously the peak of everyone's experience so far. Kelly also said that she couldn't tell everyone how magical it actually was, but it's one of those things that you always, if you're watching the show and you see the show and you've seen the show for 25 years, the Jungle Arms part is kind of the part where they have the most fun. They celebrate, they congratulate each other for how far they've got so far, and then obviously know that it's going to start getting more difficult, losing more people, but that you're kind of near the end of the show. So yeah, that was kind of that. So she was obviously reflecting on that. We then found out it was either Kelly or Lisa who was going to be the forced campmate leaving, and we found out the public had decided to get rid of Kelly. She went over to see Ant and Dec and said that she'd had an amazing time, and obviously that there was more than the 10 milk bottles, and she kind of hinted that on the way out. So she was like, yeah, guys, there was just that, there was more than 10 milk bottles. She survived 18 days. She was in the Cocker van. She obviously did the cocktails challenge where she almost choked, and she also stole sweets from her campmates. And Kelly explained that she thought this day was never going to happen, but it was the best experience and she's been around the most fabulous group of people. Tom on video said that she was incredibly capable, and every morning was just so beautiful, and she's had so much laughter the whole time, and she's actually got the whole overall jungle experience, because some people go in and probably don't do certain things and regret not doing things, and don't want to take on trials or whatever, but she kind of did a bit of everything. She did the trials, she did little challenges, she was in Loserville, she's eating all sorts of animal stuff. So I think that's the thing. Once you've kind of ticked everything off, you kind of, realise that you've done as much as you could do, and you don't regret missing things. She said she's happy that she's out because she knows that people that are still in there want it a lot more than she does. And in terms of her thoughts, she said it was real, and with everyone sleeping, it was a massive adjustment for her, a bit more of a sensory overload, just a lot of things happening at the same time. And she said in terms of the experience, it's the people that make it. She pushed herself out of her comfort zone, but ultimately it was the people around her were the ones that were keeping her being able to survive camp. The battle over chefing was brought up by Ant and Dec, and she said she felt that she was quite neutral with everyone, and she didn't necessarily pair off with anyone, in little couples or anything like that. But, once people were given their chores, it was a lot easier for people to just stick to their chores. I think once at the beginning, when they didn't have any chores, everyone was kind of just trying to do a bit of everything. But, once they were given chores, it was kind of a bit more, you have to do this, you have to do that, and actually don't get involved in everyone else's tasks. She said the worst thing was the eel in terms of the cook, and the whole having to chop heads and tails off things. It was just a bit of a treacherous thing. You don't want to just... it's difficult to just have something that's easy that you can just fry and thing. I think in the jungle, the whole point is giving you a meal that's difficult to prepare, so you actually spend time preparing it, so you actually enjoy it and go, you know what, we put a lot of hard work into that, and we grafted to get the dinner, and we've actually now grafted the actual dinner itself as well. Ant and Dec basically said that the cooking of their food was very bizarre, and even Kelly said that the treats were very important, with H not letting go, that I think she just kind of said as a joke, we should eat some of the milk bottles after one of Kev's Deals on Wheels games, and he basically was like, actually, that's quite a good idea, and then that's what they did. They also asked her whether she dropped a grenade before she left, and she said, I told them there was more than 10 milk bottles, but they're going to have to figure it out themselves. And in terms of my winner, she was like, Ruby's entertaining, but she absolutely loved singing Gold with Martin Kemp, and she said, in terms of her winner, she thinks that she wants him to go on and win it. And we also found out that at the end of the episode, the vote was open again for people to vote for their favourites, because I presume again in episode 18, we're going to lose another one of those campmates. So we have 8 people left in the jungle. We've lost 4. I think it's an interesting group of people, but I think in terms of Kelly, she had an amazing time in the jungle. Like I said, she was very loud. She was very just always opinionated, always had something to say, always, was able to jump into different conversations or laugh or sing or dance or just be sarcastic or whatever, and, screaming about dinner or dropping dinner or having no dinner or all the rest of it. But I think she was funny. She does come across as genuinely a lovely person, just a little bit special and a little bit, like she's just got like a little kid, like she's an excitable kid. But she did really, really well. That challenge where she almost didn't eat that thing and she was just sitting there like almost vomiting. It wasn't great to watch. It made me kind of swell up a little bit, but it was entertaining. But she still did really well. She beat 3 other people, but we've lost 3 of the girls now, which is a bit of a shame as well. So bring on girl power for the rest of them, and hopefully we can start getting some boys out of the jungle. But that was my review for episode 17. So if you did enjoy, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And until my next review, thank you for watching, and bye bye.